always in. It's a privilege to introduce our three speakers. We have Betty G., who will speak first. Then we have Arch B., who will speak second, and Steve R., who will speak third.
Got to pull my britches up. It's important. Yeah, it is important. My name is Betty, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. My name is Betty Gregory, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. It's an anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film, and y'all are neither one of those things. My sobriety date is June 1, 1978. My home group is We Need Each Other, and we meet in Charlotte on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 o'clock. So if you're ever in an area, please come by and visit us. It is a warm, loving group. My sponsor, who has, I think, 47 years, still stands at the door and greets people as they come in. And that's what I want to be like when I grow up. This month I'll be turning 76. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous when I was going on 32, And the old timers used to tell me things like, I drank more than you did, whatever. And I would tell them, oh, no, you didn't, But I got sober in Brooklyn, New York in 1978. And I was surrounded by a lot of giants, a lot of old timers, I picked a man to be a sponsor, and the suggestion is women with women and men with men. And ladies, if you want to know why they say that, see me after the meeting. But by God's grace, I did not get drunk, I did a lot of things in the beginning that wasn't suggested. They said, don't make any major changes for the first year. So I did a lot of changes, One of the things I did, which my sponsor approved, was I moved out of that abandoned building I was living in. I call it an abandoned building because it was an apartment building for 32 families. There were 2 of us in that building. One lady, her name was Ann. She lived up on the 3rd floor. And every now and then, when I felt real generous, I would take her up something to drink because she had trouble getting down. And then there was me, And I remember going out to the fire hydrant to get water, to bathe in, to cook in, to flush in, to do all the things that you needed water for, I remember that when I got sober, I went to detox and then through a treatment center. And when I went to detox, I had no idea what detox was. It was suggested that I go, that it might help me. So I went, I think I stayed 7 or 8 days, whatever. It was around Memorial Day weekend, and I came out. On the 4th of July, I came out of treatment because I went straight from detox to treatment. And I did my 4th step there at Smithers, and they pick someone for you to do your 4th step with. And I did my 4th step with a man. Later on in sobriety, I realized why they picked a man for me to do it with, because I probably wouldn't have told anything to a woman. It took me 6 years living sober to begin to form friendships with women, and today I cannot live without my women in AA. I mean, the men save one thing and the women save something else, so. That's one of the things I learned. I was raised by a bunch of old timers. They told you, they didn't make suggestions, these nice suggestions that we make today. They told you where you were going to sit in the meeting. You were going to sit up front. You weren't going to hide out in the back. And they told other people when and where you were going to speak, I remember people would walk up to me and say, oh, I hear you speaking at such a place. I said, I never said I was going to do that. Where'd you hear that? And they say, your sponsor. And I'd look up and my sponsor van would be standing there looking real fierce, And of course I didn't say no. When I came into AA in 1978, I wanted to not drink and feel the way I was feeling anymore. I came to AA in 76, but I went to those O meetings, you know. Now I know they were open meetings. And I would go late and I would leave early. I went to one meeting that the woman was having a party. I hadn't been invited. She was celebrating an anniversary, you know. And so I left, and I found out what my problem was that night. It was in the summertime. Everybody was sitting out on the fire escape. It was warm. And I realized my problem was rum and Coke, you know. But a little nip of beer wouldn't hurt. You know, I was 76, and 78 I was crawling into Alcoholics Anonymous, ready to do whatever they told me to do to not drink. I didn't know anything about sobriety. I just wanted to not drink. And so they told me there's some things I needed to do. One of them was to be willing to change. One was to get a home group, and I forget the other thing. But there was 3 things that they told me I needed to be willing to do. One of them was clean house, trust God and clean house. Well, when I came in, I was basically unchurched. I mean, I had been through a lot of different religions in my youth and early on, you know, depending on what foster home I was in and what their religion was, that's what I was. So I had sworn that when I got older, I wasn't gonna have nothing to do with church, you know, because everybody said theirs was the right one, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know whether God was man, woman, bird, or beast, and I was gonna play it safe. So I wasn't gonna go at all, you know. And when I got into AA, they were talking about this God thing, you know, and I remember somebody said it earlier today in a meeting about not trusting God, you know, and I thought, okay, God is good for some of y'all, but I'm not too sure about this God thing. But they were talking about it, and it seemed like it was working for them. So I remember telling my sponsor and them, you know, that I really didn't understand God, you know. So they said, Betty, don't worry. For you, it'll be God as you don't understand him. That made a lot of sense. It made perfect sense to me because I didn't understand. And they didn't tell me I had to leave or anything like that if I didn't have understanding. They just told me, keep coming back, honey. They would look at me and shake their head, especially those old biddies, which I have now become one of. But boy, I used to give them a time, you know. I used to look at them and say, a good drink will kill him, you know. A good drink will kill him. And there was one woman, her name was Jean, and she used to run around with these little hard candy bars. She was this little short lady, and she'd run around with these little candy things and be pushing it in your hand and tell you to suck on this, you know. And I thought, oh, I could tell her what to, anyway. And later on, I found out why, you know, it was to help with that craving, you know, to suck on that hard candy to help with the craving. And then they were telling me, walk with a pint of ice cream, you know, get that instead of the pint, you know. So I remember I celebrated my 40th anniversary, and I labeled it, Betty turns 40 without a 40 ounce, you know. And that was pretty good. That was pretty good for me because I was the one that would drink like a lady. I'd put my Colt 45 in a can and stick a straw in it, you know. And that was drinking like a lady, riding the subway, trying to get to work, you know. One of the first books I bought on my own that nobody gave me, the treatment center or anything didn't give it to me, was the book Came to Believe, because I started getting curious. I started getting curious about this God that I didn't understand. Something was happening in my life. I wasn't drinking. And that was very unusual for me. I tried so many ways to not drink. Kim, I'm going to let you do this when I get my 15 minutes, okay? But I tried very hard not to drink. I joined encounter groups in New York and went to gurus. In one of the encounter groups, we were all supposed to become some kind of food or vegetable. I became a strawberry shortcake with whipped cream, you know, something real fluffy and nice, you know. That didn't work, you know. But my sponsor and them told me, you know, you will be on this corner at such time, wear some nice silk stockings, dress up, smell good, we're going to detox. You know, I thought, okay. And so I did that. I stood on the corner. He said, we're going to get those men in this meeting room one way or the other. You know? I mean, they did things like that. They did things like that to us. And we went along with the program. We went along with the program. My first sponsor, his name was Percy Hawkins, and he also happened to be the man that I talked to. He's the one that put me in detox. And I remember he would drag all us women, he'd pick us up and he'd drag us to different meetings and stuff like that. And I was living in that abandoned building on Dumont Avenue and waiting downstairs for Percy to come like he always did, and he didn't show up. So I went back upstairs to my apartment where everybody was still getting drunk and smoking reefer and everything else. And I went in the room, I was furious, I was really PO'd. So, you know, maybe a few weeks or maybe a month later, I was downstairs waiting for Percy and it happened again. He didn't show up. And I'm standing there and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I went and got on the subway and I went to the Eastern Parkway group. And who was there sitting in the meeting but Percy Hawkins? I was pissed, and I had a very colorful language. And I told him how angry I was, and I just cussed him out. And he looked at me and he shook his head and he smiled. He said, I figured if you wanted it, you'd come get it, you know? And I've been going to get it like that ever since, you know? Doing what they told me to do, trying to be of maximum service to God and my fellows, you know? Trying to keep my house clean. And just doing this deal, you know, I've been able to stay sober. I'm having a love affair with Alcoholics Anonymous. And it sustains me. You all sustain me. When I moved down to Charlotte in 1983 from New York, it was a big change, but it was a welcome change, you know. And I didn't balk and talk about how they did things up north, because that would have got you thrown out of a meeting, you know. But I learned how to adapt, you know. I remember calling back and forth to my sponsor in New York and was telling them how different it was done here, and they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And he said, Betty, are they staying sober? I said, yeah. He said, well, don't call me no damn more. And that's the way they treated me then, you know. I love the old timers. I loved them then, I love them now. And I have since become an old timer, and that's amazing, you know. So thank y'all so much.